Guys, my name is Ali Al Kargouli. I'm a systems engineer and a postdoctoral fellow at the NASA Jet Propulsion Lab. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can actually finish what you start. And this is not going to be a video of tips and tricks and things like that. This is going to be actually looking at the root causes of why we get distracted and we get kind of overwhelmed during a task, why we get bored during a task, and why we're unable to finish a task, especially if you're someone who has ADHD or higher up on the ADHD spectrum, or even if you're just a neurotypical normal person and you'd like to just learn why you get distracted so easily and you can focus back on what you need to do. Now, this is very, very important because in a previous video, I've talked about procrastination and the trident of procrastination, of fear, not having aligned values of interest, and basically being overwhelmed. This is the problem with starting tasks. It makes starting tasks very, very hard. Now, what we're going to talk about today is the actual kind of the second side of procrastination, is procrastinating on continuing, basically not being able to stick to something long enough. And there are three root causes for that. And then once we talk about them, we're going to talk about the three solutions, in my opinion, at least what has worked for me, what has helped me get my PhD at 26 years old, grow my YouTube channels, grow my business on the side, do all these things while having plenty of time, whatnot. So the thing with continuing, again, this just to give a very simple summary of how this all fits into the larger system. Starting and continuing are two parts of execution. Execution is your ability to actually sit down and do the work, or stand up if you have a standing desk and do the work. Doesn't matter. The work has to get done. But obviously, once you're in the execution step, we are hoping that you will have figured out what time you should be working on this, and that now is the best time to work on it and whatnot, that you've prioritized this task, that this is actually a task that you should be working on and not just something that you're distracting yourself with, and that you have crystal clarity on the goal that you're trying to achieve. And even though a lot of people struggle with starting tasks and continuing tasks, very often the root cause has nothing to do with it, with your inability to start tasks or continue tasks. Very often it's that you're not crystal clear on what you want in life, or what you want, like specifically in terms of your goal, and you're not confident that this is the thing that you should work on right now. So a very weak prioritization system can often be the actual root cause of poor execution. But let's say that you've done these things properly, right? Let's say that you have a solid clarity system, solid prioritization system, and you're managing your time properly, and you know now is the time I should be working on this thing very specifically. This is where this thing enters. Now, as far as continuing, obviously, the very simple, and again, what the way I define continuing as is your ability to continue a task once you get it started, right? There are three reasons why you may not continue something once you start it. The very simple and obvious one is distraction, right? So, for example, you sit down to do something, I don't know, a friend or your kid or something comes and asks you for something, and then you're like, oh, and then you kind of get lost in that and you never get back to the task. That's a very common one. I would say this one's actually a big pain for ADHDers because this is the reason why I have a lot of like on my phone, like a lot of things are blocked. On my computer, a lot of things are blocked. There are certain times where I tell people, if you need me for an emergency, call me. Otherwise, like the smallest of distractions, even you going to like search something on Google, or you opening YouTube to play a song, like there would be times where I go on YouTube to find a song to listen to while I want to do the work, and then I get distracted by all the songs that are on YouTube and not. Hence, I figured out a way to block out all the other things that are distracting me. So basically, distraction is step number one. You want to make sure your environment is not distracting you. Your desk is decluttered, your phone's decluttered, computer decluttered. You make it very clear to your close loved ones that, hey, there's a time where I'm going to sit down and do some work. If you need me, if you absolutely need me, call me, or like come interrupt me if it's something like that's absolutely important, right? You want to reduce distraction as much as possible. If you do that alone, you're going to be a lot more likely to continue a task. Now, the second problem that you may have is boredom, right? So boredom is a big, big problem. This is why people, especially ADHDers, delay things like taxes or like paperwork or like things that are formal and very boring. And that's actually a real problem, is that if something is just genuinely so boring and you're just not interested in doing it, you may summon the will to get started on it and break it down into small step whatnot, but it's just gonna be so hard to actually stick to it, right? And then the third problem, which is basically like a different form of distraction, is like internal distraction, is like an idea that comes to you where like you're working on something and you're like, oh wait, I should be doing this thing. And for example, this happens to me all the time where like I'd be sitting down to do something for my job, and then I get an idea of like, oh no, maybe I should go back and do this thing with my holography antenna design, or like maybe I should go back and write my code this way, or oh, I just got a cool idea for a YouTube video. How should I make this YouTube video? And then my thought pattern goes in this direction. And then another idea pops up. And then another idea pops up. This is especially a pain if you're higher up on the ADHD spectrum, because basically your head is like your brain is a popcorn machine of ideas, just one after the other. And that can be a real pain. And again, without having a solid system of how to manage that, is going to be near impossible to continue. So something that has really helped me is just gaining enough awareness to, why am I struggling to continue? Why am I struggling to finish what I start? And if I'm able to at least diagnose why that's happening, just having the awareness and the mindfulness of that alone is half the battle. I often ask, if I'm really struggling to continue a task, and very often you don't even notice that you're struggling to continue a task. But the reason I know I struggle to continue a task is because I have a very robust clarity and prioritization system that I'm constantly looking at. Was like, oh, I started this. Why did I not finish it? I started this. Why did I not finish it? And that gives me basically the idea that, okay, I'm not doing what I should be doing. So I basically try to diagnose it out of these three possibilities. Now, once I'm able to actually diagnose the proper cause, then I can go and find the proper cure. So obviously, a very easy trump card, like a very simple thing you can do, is accountability. Like if you sit down and do the work with someone, or if someone's like expecting you to get something at a certain time, especially if that person has like high like a boss or someone you really respect, then obviously that's going to give you the urgency, and it's going to release the chemicals in your brain, such as the adrenaline, the norepinephrine, and the dopamine necessary to actually get the task done. Because then there's external pressure, especially if you're like, I don't know, like someone who does not want to let people down. We're not going to get too distracted with this mindset conversation. That's a topic for another video. But the idea is that accountability is always something that's very powerful. And if you don't have people around in your life that can hold you accountable, I will put a link below to my community where like I can hold you accountable, other people can hold you accountable. But basically, accountability is very important. Now, once you do that, there are three things that you can do to solve the three problems here. So again, accountability kind of just acts as a kind of like a joker card, like that just basically solves any problem in theory. But suppose that you don't have that available, or suppose you don't want to rely on that. You're saying, oh, I don't want accountability. I want to rely on myself. I want to actually learn how to solve my problem. Totally valid. That's how I would think as well. So what you would do is, based on the three different things that you diagnose, or the three things that you have in mind, then we go ahead and figure out what to do. So if the problem is distraction, as I mentioned before, the answer to this one is very simple. Is delete as much things from your life that are distracting you. Delete the social media apps, or the notifications, at least turn them off, that are preventing you from being able to focus. Delete things on your computer that are distracting you. Delete things on your desk that are constantly cluttering you and making you lose attention and focus. Delete toxic people from your life, or delete people that are demanding too much of your time and don't really value you and don't really give you much in return. Delete anything that's basically distracting you constantly and interrupting you and does not really help you achieve your goals. And when I'm saying your goals, I don't necessarily mean like get rid of people from your life that they actually care about. I strongly disagree with that school of thought. Like, I really value having family and friends that I care about and spending time with my friends and family. But very often there's a lot of people or things in your life that you simply do not need and do not add much to your happiness. You know, not so being able to delete these things will significantly increase the likelihood that you can achieve your goal. The very most important thing that you delete is your phone from your site. You just put it somewhere else, or you manage it in a way. And again, I really take this step very passionately, because my phone looks like this. It does not look like the average person's phone. It looks very different, because I've deleted all the stuff that are distracting me, and I've turned my phone into my best friend. So that's step number one. Step number two is, if you are struggling with the second part, which is boredom, there's actually something that I really recommend, which is two things: music and people. So again, if something is really boring, it could be fun to sit down and do it with someone. However, I get that majority of the tasks you're doing by yourself. And this is where I introduce my secret weapon to solving the boredom problem, which is music. And if you can see here in my tabs, you'll see that the execute button has this YouTube music thing to it. And that's because I associate music, listening to music and different kinds of music, with basically different tasks that I need to get done. So my secret to doing things that are boring, like let's say I need to sit down and do my taxes, and that's something I really do not enjoy, then I pick a playlist or an album or something that I really enjoy listening to, and I associate the joy of listening to the music with the task, and then the task becomes actually a lot more enjoyable, or at least less miserable, now that I'm at least enjoying music or doing something of that nature. So again, something really makes a huge difference to me is music and people. I try to integrate that as much as possible, especially if I'm doing something very, very boring. Now, the very last thing that we're going to talk about is new ideas, right? What happens when your brain starts throwing new ideas at you? This is especially relevant if you have ADHD. This is a very, very big problem. And if you keep these ideas popping left and right, then there's a very simple solution to it, which is basically having a system for being able to write things down and move on, and basically building a second brain in which you can keep all those ideas and categorize them and remember them so you don't forget them. And I actually made a whole video on that, and it should be somewhere over here, over here, over here, somewhere. So you should go ahead and watch that so that way you can learn how to do that. And I'll see you over there. Peace, love.